Okay, that's it for the birthdays. Okay. Okay. This is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight. What's his name? His name is Flo. Her name is Flo. His name is I'm sorry.
My name is Flo. I'm an alcoholic. And for those of you listening to the tape, I am not a chick with a deep voice. Okay? Let's get that straight. I want to thank Zeke. I want to thank Michelle for having me come out and share with you guys, and Sean D., who's not here, who helped set this up. I love this room. I started coming to this room 25 years ago when I first got here, before I actually got sober. I met my first sponsor in this room, and David mentioned that we are a bunch of losers. I am honored to be among your company tonight. I am one of you. And as one of the newcomers said when he stood up, that he had alcoholism and a whole lot of other things. As one of my favorite speakers, Eric C., says, I have this thing in spades. I got it all. They didn't forget one little bit when they gave me alcoholism. I'm going to tell you a little bit of my story tonight. We're going to read a little bit out of the big book. I want to tell you two things if you're new. This book will save your life. I'm going to say that again. This book will save your life. Sounds corny, sounds bullshit. I don't care what you think about it. It's the honest-to-God truth. Read this book, and you might not have to die of this disease. I get excited about people who get excited about this book. I had dinner with Jace beforehand, and we pulled the book out, and he's so into it. And if you want to find someone to open the book with, raise your hand, young man, see Jace. That's for the men. But he is kind of cute. I get excited about reading the book, and every time I open it, I get something new. The second thing I want to tell you tonight is Alcoholics Anonymous works. If you think that Alcoholics Anonymous will not work for you, that is a lie you are telling yourself, in my humble opinion. I am here to tell you, as God is my witness, Alcoholics Anonymous will work for you. And if you don't believe that, I want you to talk to me after the meeting, and we'll talk about it. That's my girl. We're going to talk after the meeting. It will work for you. I promise you. I absolutely promise you that. To get the math out of the way, I came in September of 1985. I was sent to Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, I got here by the grace of God and the state of California because I got another DUI. It qualified as a second offense if it was within 5 years. It was 4 years, 11 months, and 27 days. So if you want to get into my luck, if you want to just open the book on my life, that's how the dice roll for Flo, and that's fine. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. But again, just to get the math out of the way, I never had a drink from my first meeting. I was an alcoholic. I did not read the book. I did not understand the disease, and so I continued to smoke pot and do some non-habit-forming cocaine on the weekends and an occasional Tuesday night all night. And I know this is an AA meeting. Drugs are a part of my story. If you open this, they also happen to be a part of Bill and Bob's story. So there you go. But in April of 1986, I went to enough meetings and heard people say that if I wanted what they had, that I had to stop everything that affected me from the neck up. And I took a new sobriety date. And I've managed to stay sober now for 23 years and whatever change that is. And I have not done anything gracefully in sobriety. I'm not the poster child for sobriety. If there's a mistake, you can make it. If there's a trap door, if there's a pitfall, if you can trip over something, I've done it. And I'm still here. I was born in Philadelphia. My dad split, and so I was born to my mom. My mom was a good Catholic girl. And in 1957, it was fairly risque for her to give birth out of wedlock. She actually went away, because that's what women did in those days. When you were in the family way, you went away for a few months and probably put the child up for adoption. And I could very well have gone up for adoption at Catholic Charities, but I happen to think I was just so adorable she had to keep me. That's just my take on the whole thing. And so I was raised in Philadelphia, and I was different right out of the gate because it seemed like all the other kids I knew, except my one friend Jackie, had a mom and a dad, and I just had a mom. And so from a very early age, I became obsessed with what it meant to be a man. I'm talking 6, 7 years old, and I'm worried about the fact that I'm different from the other boys, that I'm not going to grow up to be like them. And I was a really good student, which didn't help. When I was growing up, I went to St. Patrick's. It was a Catholic school in Center City, Philadelphia. And on the playground, there were two things that measured the worth of a young man. One was sports, and the other was fighting. I never had a dad to throw a ball with me, shoot hoops, any of that kind of stuff. And I did most of my fighting with my face, kind of thing. And so I wasn't very good at either of those, and I was really trying to figure out, okay, what's this all about? From a very early age, I was trying to figure it out. Most normal kids just are. They participate, they do what they do, and from a very early age, I got stuck up here in my head. My disease, I suffer from alcoholism, and my disease is a disease of thinking. I have an allergy of the body coupled with an obsession of the mind. The allergy of the body I can explain very simply. If you put any Grand Marnier or Corona beer or red wine or Jack Daniels in my system, what happens is there's a one-word response, kind of a glorious response. More. What happens is it's like flipping a switch, and there's this phenomenon of craving that takes place. I worked as a bartender for most of my sobriety, and people would say, well, don't you have a craving? How can you be around alcohol? And it's really hard to explain to somebody who is a layperson that my cravings start after I have the first drink. My cravings start once I introduce, because once I start, we're drinking till I'm full. That's just the way it is. We're going to keep drinking till, the way I describe it, imagine you're in someone's backyard and they have one of those thermometers on the back wall. And it's got the little red mercury that goes up to the top. I never stopped at 60 degrees or 70 degrees. I drank until it was 99 or 110 or wherever the hell the thermometer went. And so I have this allergy of the body coupled with this obsession of the mind. Oh, and I do have to mention cocaine, because I did everything. I smoked pot, took ludes, ate mushrooms, did acid. The only thing I never did was shot drugs. But I want to tell you, the perfect storm was as soon as I had a drink, I wanted a line, and as soon as I did a line, I wanted a drink. No two things ever went together in life as well as alcohol and cocaine. That is my experience. They were the perfect storm. And what happened is, sometime in 1977, I got that absolutely pinnacle high. Everything was right for that moment, hour, afternoon, evening. And what I did is I chased that for the rest of my drinking and using. And I always overshot the mark. I was either just grinding my gums because there was a little too much coke, or I was falling over because there was a little too much booze. And trying to find that, yeah, I tried, man. I worked for that line. You know, kind of when you set the level and the little bubble is right there. I hit it once, and I chased it for the rest of my time. But the obsession of the mind is really simple for me, and that is, this time it's going to be different. No matter how many times I stay up all night, miss work, crash cars, DUIs, piss her off, let down my friends, sleep with their girlfriend, whatever I did, the next time I said, this time it's going to be different. I'm only going to go out to the bar for a little while. It's Sunday night. Sundays were so hard, people. Sundays were so hard because you had to put the brakes on, and I couldn't put the brakes on. We'd been going since Thursday night, and Sunday night I would say, you know what, I'm going to go out to the bar, and I'm going to come home at 10 or 11 o'clock and get to bed early and do whatever those responsible things I need to do are on Monday. I see Mr. 4 Hours is laughing. You remember that, huh? And so, but see, that's the beauty of Alcoholics Anonymous. My friend there is nodding because he identifies with what I'm saying. We're all in this together. Either you have this or you don't. And the reason you identify is because of your thinking. You know what I mean? It's not because of the drinking that I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about, not talking about how much I drank or what I did. I'm talking about my thinking. And the people are not, if you're nodding, I'm sorry to tell you, you're one of us. You know what I mean? You're stuck. You're screwed, man. And so I would say, okay, I'm going to come home at 10 or 11 o'clock. And what would happen is I would stay out till 2. And somebody would have blow, or we would buy some blow, and I would stay up all night. And at 6 or 6:30, I'd be telling people, well, let's keep it going. We can get some more. Let's do this. And people would be like, no, can you see it's light out? It's Monday morning. You know, and so then what I would have to do is I would have to get on the phone, and I had it perfectly, because what I did is I tried to call work when someone was in, the receptionist or whoever, but before the boss got in, because I didn't want to talk to him on the phone because he knew I was lying, because I had done it so many times. And so I would try to time that call at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, get her on the phone, and my car had broken down, or I was sick one more time, or yet again my grandmother had died, or whatever the excuse was. Where else can you go and laugh about your grandmother dying, man? This is a great place we got here. I'm telling you. And so I would have one other excuse, you know, one more excuse, and then I would turn the phone off because I was afraid to answer the phone and talk to the boss when they would call me one more time and say, you know what, you're really letting us down. You keep doing this and we need you. We have you on the schedule and we're depending on you and we can't depend on you. And I, you know, invariably a couple days later, I'd get pulled into an office or pulled aside and the boss would sit me down and he would talk to me about that. And you'd get that shake of the head, you know, that just side to side, how many times can you disappoint us and how many times can we let you slide kind of thing. And I'd swear and promise that I'd never do it again and I was going to turn it around and straighten out my act. But see, I was powerless over alcohol and my life was completely unmanageable. See, because once I introduced that Grand Marnier or that cocaine, we didn't know where it was going to end. You know, it's like the ultimate roller coaster ride. You get on, but you can't follow that car around the park. You don't know where it's going to go or when it's going to come to a stop. And it says, I want to talk a little bit about the book. It says in the book, this is on page 66. It says, it's talking about resentment. We found that is fatal. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns, and we drink again. And with us to drink is to die. Now, it's important that it doesn't say there, we drink again, and the insanity of alcohol returns. It says the insanity of alcohol returns first. My insanity is my thinking. Drinking is just a manifestation. Drinking was not my problem. Drinking was my solution. Drinking was the answer for me. And the problem is my best friend, that loyal, beautiful Labrador retriever that lasted for me through all of my 20s, turned around and bit my ass. You know what I mean? Alcoholism turned around and stopped helping me and started hurting me. And so now the only answer I had, the only reed I had to grab, was now causing the bottom to fall out from under me. On page 24, it says, when this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid, and unless locked up, may die or go permanently insane. You know, jails, institutions, and death, that's where it comes from, page 24. These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history, but for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop, but cannot. How many can I hear that wanted to stop, but couldn't? Look at this, look around. There is a solution. That's the next line. There is a solution. But I have to treat my thinking, and what the steps are designed to do is treat my thinking. Now, obviously, physical sobriety has to come first. If the steps are a vehicle that are going to take me where I need to go, and to another vehicle, to a train or to a plane or whatever it is, I got to get out of the house. The physical sobriety is getting out of the building and getting in the car. I have to have physical sobriety first. But I have the opportunity to work a little bit in treatment. And I have the opportunity to help out in a couple treatment centers. And what I find most frustrating is most people come into a treatment center feeling like that they are going to do their 30 days, and at the end of the 30 days they have crossed the finish line and their problem is solved. Is there anybody here from treatment centers tonight? Any of the centers come to see us? Okay. Here's the bad news. What happens is that 30 days is the starting line. At the end of that 30 days, you get down in the blocks, we fire the gun, and off you go. And this is a lifelong deal. I have a disease. I have an illness called alcoholism. It's an allergy of the body coupled with an obsession of the mind that's all rolled up in this spiritual malady that tells me I'm not good enough, I'm a piece of shit, I'm never going to make it, you're all looking at me and it's not going well, and why bother? Let's just close the blinds, get under the covers, and we'll be fine. You know, that's my disease. And so what I need to do is change that thinking, and I cannot change that thinking with other thinking. I can't fix a broken brain with the same thinking. The only way for me to change that thinking was the actions that were suggested to me around here. And I want to tell you, people, they told me to do things, and I thought, they're crazy. What does that have to do with anything? It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. Let me go back. I know I only have a little time, but I want to go back to my story a little bit. It worked for a long time. We've been on the email, and some of my friends from college are all, we've created this huge email thread, and we keep adding people every day, and we're talking about having a reunion. I went to George Washington University in the late 70s. Okay, it's GW University. We used to call it Get Wasted U for GW. You know what I mean? And we had literally had people walking around the dorm with bags of lewds. Every room had a bong in it. You know, people would set up taps in the room. I don't know how we ever made it to class or took tests or wrote papers. It's just beyond me. But they're all talking about getting together, and most of them still party, and I just have to chuckle at this whole thing. Because I'm going to show, there's a couple guys that know I'm sober, not that it's a secret, but I'm going to show up as the sober guy, and I know some people are going to get red in the face or kind of be like, oh, okay, you know what I mean? Because I make people nervous, and you know what? That's good. That's good, because if I make you nervous, you probably have what I have. You know what I'm saying? But to this day, those 4 years were the best 4 years of my life. I made friendships that have lasted 30 years. I'm still talking to a lot of these guys, and it was working. If you're new to Alcoholics Anonymous, we are not anti-alcohol. I worked as a bartender for almost 20 years of my sobriety. People used to get mad at me. People would come into the bar and go, you're an alcoholic, you go to AA, and yet you're serving alcoholics. You're a bad example. You know what I tell them? I'd say, you know what? The only time I have a problem with alcohol is when I put it in my mouth. And if I wasn't here making $300 a night in tips, there'd be some other yahoo doing it. So I'm not breaking the law. Thank you very much. Leave a tip, you know. And but again, I have to go back to the point. The people that I make nervous probably have what I have. You know what I mean? And so I ended up right down the street at the Baja Cantina. And it's a drinker's bar, and the great thing about being a bartender is at any given moment, there are people within 12 feet of you that you can say, see that guy in the tie? He's got a problem. That guy in the green shirt, he's a mess. The guy with his arms folded, forget about it. I'm okay. See, I've never met an alcoholic that couldn't keep score, right? And so what I would do is I just made sure I was surrounded by a majority of people who might have been worse drinkers than me, and I'd say, I'm fine. You know, and so Anchorage, Buccaneer, Catamaran, Driftwood, Eastwind, all the streets in the Marina have nautical names and they're in alphabetical order. And when I worked there, I knew a drug dealer at every letter of the alphabet, man. And they all would walk down to the Baja because they probably had a couple prior DUIs, and I took care of them. I had what they wanted. I had free booze. Not that they cared, because back in the 80s, they were making money hand over fist, man. But I also knew all the girls at the bar, and I could introduce them. And in return, they took care of me. They gave me blow while I was working, and at the end of the night, we'd go back to their $1 million condo in the Marina and impress all the girls. And invariably, what they do, they had the little brown vials, and they'd take one of those Baja Cantina napkins, and they'd take the vial and crumple it up, and they'd put their hand on the bar. Because I'm running down, I'm picking up plates and chips and glasses, and I might throw it away. And we would make eye contact, like with Jay, and I would nod. And so they would take their hand away, and I had one of those aprons that had little pockets, and I would put it in my pocket. And you want to see a good bartender? It's a full bar. But I know that the other guy is going to get pissed if I leave. And so I would put it into overdrive. I would make sure we'd get to that moment where the two of us were standing there looking around and everyone had a drink. No one needed me. And I would duck under that bar door. And as you went under the bar, literally 3 feet to the left was the men's room. And I would walk into the men's room and I'd close the stall behind me and I'd look at that vial, and I had the same thought every time I shook up that vial. And that thought was, how much of this can I do without looking like I've done too much? Right? And so I'd take a couple bumps, I'd shake it up again, I'd go, that's good, nah, and then I'd take a little more. But again, they didn't care. We had this beautiful relationship, and so I would go over to their place afterwards, and you'd spend the first couple hours trying to get laid, and if that didn't work, you would just spend the rest of the time getting loaded. And like I said, at 6:30 I would come home because my friends were all done with me. I used to live over by Queens Market over here, and I would pull lawn chairs. My neighbors had to think it's Venice, but they had to think I was nuts. I would pull lawn chairs out onto the front lawn because it's warm, it's summertime. I would go to Queens Market and I would get a 6-pack, and I would sit out there at 9 in the morning. I used to love to read novels, Ludlum or whatever it was, Dune. You know, I'd read these little paperback novels, and I'd drink beer until I could go to sleep. And then I'd fall asleep around noon. I'd wake up at 4 or 5. I'd go running because I always convinced myself that if I went running and I was healthy, I didn't have a problem, right? If I'm in good shape, I can't be a drug addict or an alcoholic. And I would drive into work. I'd always be late, walking in, my hair wet, coming out of the shower, and I'd always say the same thing walking into the bar, and that is, I'm not going to drink tonight. No matter what happens, I feel like shit. I've had 4 hours sleep. I can't hold food down. You know what I mean? The inside of my mouth feels like the floor of a taxi cab with cigarette butts all over it. I'm dying here. And so I'd go in and I'd pour that first Coca-Cola to try to get the caffeine in me to get going. I'd say, I'm not drinking tonight. And every night I broke that promise to myself. I drank every night. I never kept that promise. And I want to tell you, if you make a promise to yourself and you break it day after day, month after month, year after year, you really feel like you're a piece of shit. You just drive that force, that idea home. And so when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I had a house, I had a car that ran. It was like a 79 Buick, but it ran, you know. It's a big old car, man. And I had friends, I had a couple bucks in the bank. You know what I mean? I was a very high bottom drunk, but I was dead on the inside. I loathed myself. Because all those kids that I went to college with, it's so funny, on this email thread, they're all attorneys. You know what I mean, or accountants, and you know, because I haven't talked to some of these guys in years. Some of them I'm in touch with, some I'm not. And so you see the name of the firm, and not only are they all attorneys, they're all partners. You know, and they went drink for drink and drug for drug with me in college, but they don't have what I have. They just party too much. And they got out of school and bought homes and had wives and had kids and started businesses or took over daddy's business, and they're successful today. And see, at 29, I knew all my friends that had left college had done well, and I couldn't finish my senior year because I couldn't show up for class because I was getting loaded. And so one more time I thought, see, you're different than everybody else. You're that loser. You know what I mean? You didn't make it. Nice try, Flo. You didn't make it. And what happened is I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I started taking direction and started taking the actions that you guys suggested. Many of you have heard this story, but for the new people, I met Israel in this room. I asked Israel to be my sponsor. I had 6 months. I don't recommend waiting that long, but I needed someone. And he was just such a spiritual cat. I just loved his message. And so we started working the steps, and we ended up going to the cemetery in Santa Monica on like 14th and Pico, and it was a cold October day, and we knelt down outside and we read the big book, and I signed right after the third step prayer, like I was signing a contract. And we said this prayer on our knees, and we sat back up, and I was like, Israel, you know, people from the strip Pico, they could see us, man. You know what I mean? What are we doing kneeling down outside? And he said, Flo, you're ready. He showed me the columns in the 4-step, and he said, I want you to go home and start writing your 4-step. And I said, Izzy, you got it. He goes, call me tomorrow. Okay, no problem. I did not call him for a year. I apparently was unwilling to write a 4-step at that time. And what I want to tell you is when I did a year later write a 4-step, I wrote 60 pages, people. I was 29 years old. Do you think I had some issues? You know, and it took 4 hours to read it. And I want to tell you, it wasn't all that bad. What I thought I was putting on paper and what I had so much shame about was nothing like what ended up on the paper or what came out of my mouth. And I have to share that with you. Until you try it, you won't know how it's not this horrific event that you think it's going to be. Because you know what? We all did the same things. And I'll speak to the men. If a bunch of us got to sit around right now and talk, we'd be like, you did that, man. Wait, I did that. We all did the same stuff, man. So whatever you're ashamed about, there's 20 other guys in this room that did it too. Seriously. Seriously, I want to go back to the book again. I love this book. Jason and I were looking at a little bit of Bill's story tonight. This is on page 13. I was to test my thinking by the new God consciousness within. Common sense would thus become uncommon sense. I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would have me. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my request bore on my usefulness to others. Then only might I expect to receive, but that would be in great measure. My friend promised that when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator, that I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems. Belief in the power of God plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements, simple but not easy. A price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things to the Father of light who presides over us all. See, my thinking problem is that I'm selfish and self-centered. It talks about it on page 62. I invite anyone who is identified with what I said tonight and think you might think like me to go home tonight and open to page 62 and read about selfishness and self-centeredness. My problem is I'm so wrapped up in me, I'm not present. By the way, which clock? That says 10 of, that says quarter of. Which one am I going by?
10 of.
It's 10 of now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take 1 minute to wrap up. This is on page 14. My friend had emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all my affairs. Particularly was it imperative to work with others. As he had worked with me, faith without works was dead, he said, and how appallingly true for the alcoholic. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the trials and low spots ahead. What I want everyone in this room, please, to ask yourself tonight, whether you have 1 day or 28 years, happy birthday to the birthday people and congratulations to the Chips, is how was your work and self-sacrifice today? I know mine was good, but it could have been better. But thanks to you, I had a damn good day. Thank you for letting me speak.
Yeah.